The current political stage is riddled with businessmen, arguments over xenophobia and outsourcing, and more discussion about email than all social media combined. With all of this happening, and I say I'm studying politics, I usually watch people's faces contort a little bit, as if they're thinking, are you sure you've thought this through? I have. I am studying political science, but my career aspirations take me far beyond domestic politics. I want to be a foreign service officer for the State Department, advancing U.S. policies abroad and creating relationships with local governments and communities. It's a position that requires strong communication skills, cultural awareness, and adaptability, all of which I am learning to possess as a freshman at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. In this day and age, all jobs require strong communication skills. Throughout high school, I competed in speech and was secretary for the scout crew, all with the intention of building strong communication skills. However, there is so much more to learn. As I began my freshman writing course, I started to recognize the connection that comes from being able to communicate well. In preparation for the class, we read excerpts from some of history's most influential individuals. Everyone from Aristotle to Abraham Lincoln to Rachel Carson to Pope John Paul II. And as we read these people's thoughts and formed our own opinions, we realized we had a connection with people who lived decades before we were even thought of. So what's our excuse for not being able to find that same connection with people who live today? Language can be an equalizer across borders and boundaries if we let it. In order to not let language be a boundary in my own career, I'm also studying Spanish. In 10 years, I hope to be serving in a Latin American country, communicating with the people there in order to understand their needs, but also to understand their stories and have the privilege of sharing mine. Now, growing up in the sheltered, essentially white city of Lakeville, Minnesota, I didn't have a lot of exposure to different cultures, but I did have small windows into the larger world that helped me start to recognize the importance of cultural awareness. In speech, other competitors spoke about what it was like being a first-generation American and how to balance those conflicting cultures. Then my dad brought home stories of his international coworkers, how he discussed Russian economics over lunch, even though he works in healthcare. And through my own travels, I was able to serve children in a Mexican orphanage, understanding the different language, food, and social norms that come from growing up in an impoverished Hispanic neighborhood. So many of the assumptions I'd inadvertently created were shattered, and they continue to be as I study in my comparative politics class. Throughout the class, my cultural awareness is growing with every new chapter we read, with every new class discussion, with every new current event that takes on more meaning, because I'm learning to study the histories and cultures of the country that it comes from, for all of those warrant noting. In 10 years, I hope to be serving in a Latin American country, increasing my awareness of their culture and melding into it myself. I can't point to a specific class and say, here, this class taught me to be adaptable. But I can reference my freshman experience with taking new classes taught by new teachers in a new part of the country in a city that changes its most important resident every 4 years. I am building a life for myself in a city that is constantly in motion, teaching me to adjust my expectations, which is imperative to fulfilling my goal of becoming a foreign service officer. I am constantly adapting, constantly making changes, and constantly chasing what makes me feel alive. Because in 10 years, that's really what I want to be. Alive.